The Galactic Military Academy floated above the neutral world of Vera Prime like a fortress built by civilizations that had spent millennia mastering war. Its immense silver spires stretched beyond the atmosphere, connected by rotating rings that housed training facilities, simulation chambers, and combat arenas large enough to contain entire cities. Every cycle, the most promising military minds from across known space competed for a place among the future commanders of the Galactic Coalition. For most cadets, admission to the academy was the highest honor their species could achieve. For humans, it was something else entirely. It was a test. Lieutenant Candidate Ava Mercer stood among hundreds of cadets gathered inside the Central Assembly Chamber. Species from every corner of the galaxy filled the massive hall. Towering reptilian warriors stood beside insectoid tacticians. Massive gravity-adapted giants exchanged quiet conversations with elegant aquatic beings encased in mobile life support fields. Despite the diversity, there was one thing many of them seemed to agree on. Humans did not belong there. Ava had grown accustomed to the stares. She had endured them for 3 years. The whispers never changed. Too small. Too fragile. Too emotional. Too primitive. Many cadets viewed humanity as an oddity that had somehow earned a seat at the galactic table through luck and exaggeration. Human military history was often discussed with open skepticism. Stories of impossible victories, desperate last stands, and tactical genius were dismissed as self-created myths. The coalition respected human diplomats. It tolerated human engineers. But its future officers rarely respected human soldiers. Across the chamber, a group of cadets burst into laughter. The loudest among them was Cale Vorth, the Academy's highest-ranked combat specialist. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, the warrior from the Varkani Dominion had become something of a celebrity among the student body. His species valued strength above all else, and Cale embodied everything they admired. He caught sight of Ava and smirked. "There she is," he said loudly enough for dozens nearby to hear. "Humanity's finest." Several cadets chuckled. Ava ignored them. That only seemed to amuse Cale more. "I still don't understand why humans send representatives here," he continued. "The Academy trains military leaders, not historians." The laughter grew louder. A few instructors glanced toward the disturbance but made no effort to intervene. Ava remained motionless. Experience had taught her that responding only encouraged them. The chamber darkened as the Academy command staff entered. Instantly, conversation ceased. At the center of the platform stood Commandant Sarek, a veteran strategist whose campaigns were studied throughout Coalition space. "The combat excellence trials begin tomorrow," he announced. "Your performance will determine final rankings, command eligibility, and future assignments." A massive holographic display ignited above the gathering. The room filled with anticipation. This was the event every cadet had spent years preparing for. Sarek continued. "Equipment assignments will now be distributed." Autonomous drones descended from the ceiling. One by one, combat packages were delivered. Advanced plasma accelerators. Gravitic disruptors. Particle lances. Experimental coalition weapon systems. Excited murmurs spread through the crowd. Then one drone stopped in front of Ava. The container it carried looked noticeably different. Smaller. Older. Far simpler. When the compartment opened, silence lasted for half a second before laughter erupted throughout the chamber. Inside rested a human kinetic launcher. Not a plasma weapon. Not an energy projector. A projectile weapon. Several cadets openly pointed. Cale looked genuinely stunned before bursting into laughter. "You're serious?" he said. "Your people still use those?" The reaction spread across the hall. Ava carefully lifted the weapon. Unlike the others, she wasn't embarrassed. She was checking specifications. Power levels. Calibration settings. Safety restrictions. Her expression remained unreadable. From the command platform, one of the senior instructors noticed exactly what she was doing. His face tightened. A brief look passed between him and Commandant Sarek. Neither appeared amused. The instructor leaned closer and spoke quietly. "Let's hope she remembers the arena regulations." For the first time, Sarek looked concerned. Meanwhile, the cadets continued laughing, completely unaware. Above them, the holographic display shifted to reveal the combat arena where the trials would take place. Millions across Coalition space would be watching. Kale crossed his arms and stared directly at Ava. "Tomorrow," he said confidently, "this should be entertaining." Ava secured the launcher to her back and met his gaze for the first time all day. She didn't smile. She didn't argue. She simply walked away. And somehow, that silence left a far stronger impression than any response could have. By the time the Combat Excellence Trials officially began, excitement had spread far beyond the Academy. Millions of viewers across Coalition space tuned into the live broadcast. The event wasn't merely a graduation requirement. It was a demonstration of the galaxy's future military leadership, a showcase where reputations were built and destroyed in a single day. The combat arena itself was a masterpiece of engineering. Stretching hundreds of kilometers beneath a transparent containment dome, the environment could be reshaped instantly through advanced terrain generators. Mountain ranges rose from the ground. Dense urban structures emerged from hidden platforms. Rivers, valleys, forests, and fortified installations appeared as if entire worlds were being created from nothing. Ava Mercer stood silently inside the staging area, watching the first evaluations unfold. One by one, cadets entered the arena and attempted to complete the assigned objective. At the center of the battlefield sat a heavily shielded command complex protected by multiple defensive layers. The challenge was simple in theory. Destroy the target using any approved combat method. The first cadet deployed a plasma accelerator powerful enough to melt armored warships. Brilliant streams of blue energy slammed into the defensive shield. The crowd cheered. The shield barely flickered. The second competitor used gravitic compression technology. Invisible waves struck the complex, distorting space itself. Again, the audience applauded. Again, the target survived. Several more cadets followed. Particle beams. Quantum destabilizers. Electromagnetic bombardments. Each attack produced spectacular displays of power. Each generated impressive visual effects that commentators enthusiastically described to viewers throughout Coalition territory. Yet none achieved complete success. The shield absorbed the punishment and remained standing. Eventually Kale Vorth entered the arena. Predictably, the audience response exploded. The Varkani warrior had become the overwhelming favorite to win the competition. His attack was devastating. Using a gravitic lance system, he concentrated enormous destructive force into a narrow strike zone. The impact shattered defensive structures surrounding the objective and damaged portions of the shield network. For the first time, meaningful progress appeared on the scoreboard. The crowd erupted. Kale exited the battlefield to thunderous applause. When the results were posted, he immediately claimed first place. Then Ava's turn arrived. The atmosphere changed instantly. Excitement transformed into amusement. Broadcast feeds displayed her equipment package. Commentators struggled to hide their disbelief. "A kinetic launcher," one remarked. "Those still exist." Laughter echoed through portions of the audience. Even viewers watching from distant star systems joined the mockery, flooding communication channels. Ava entered the arena carrying the same weapon she had received the previous day. Compared to the advanced systems used by other cadets, it looked almost absurdly simple. No glowing energy chambers. No exotic field generators. No visible technological sophistication. Just a launcher. Nothing more. Kale watched from the observation deck and shook his head. "I almost feel sorry for her," he said. Several nearby cadets laughed. Inside the arena, Ava ignored every distraction. Instead of raising her weapon immediately, she began studying the environment. Her eyes moved across the terrain. Mountain elevations. Atmospheric conditions. Wind currents. Shield placement. Structural geometry. Sensor towers. Observation platforms. She examined details that nobody else had bothered to consider. Minutes passed. The audience grew restless. "What is she doing?" a commentator asked. "She hasn't even targeted the objective." "Perhaps she's searching for an escape route," another joked. More laughter followed. Cale folded his arms. Humans always overthink everything. Ava continued her assessment. To most observers, her behavior looked like hesitation. To trained military professionals watching more carefully, it looked different. Several instructors exchanged concerned glances. One noticed the trajectory calculations appearing on Ava's tactical display. Another quietly accessed her weapon specifications. His expression immediately changed. "Wait," he muttered. The instructor beside him frowned. "What is it?" Instead of answering, he enlarged the ammunition data. A long silence followed. "That's impossible." Nearby officials turned toward the screen. One after another, their confidence disappeared. Far below, Ava finally reached a conclusion. She knelt beside the launcher and opened the ammunition chamber. The movement caught everyone's attention. At last, she was preparing to fire. The crowd settled into anticipation. Expectations of failure spread across the viewing networks. Many were eager to witness the human cadet embarrass herself in front of the entire coalition. Ava selected a single round and carefully locked it into place. The moment the weapon completed its loading sequence, multiple arena monitoring systems activated simultaneously. Warning icons flashed across command displays. Automated sensors began scanning the launcher repeatedly. A sharp alert echoed through the control center. Several officials rose from their seats. What triggered that? An operator checked the readings. His eyes widened. For the first time that day, genuine concern spread through the observation deck. The instructors weren't laughing anymore. Neither was Commandant Sarek. They were all staring at the same number appearing across their screens. And suddenly, everyone in command realized exactly what type of ammunition the human cadet had just loaded. Silence spread through the control center as warning notifications multiplied across every monitoring system connected to the arena. What had begun as a routine combat evaluation was suddenly drawing the attention of senior instructors, weapons analysts, and safety officers. Ava Mercer remained kneeling beside the launcher. Calm. Focused. Completely unaffected by the growing tension around her. The automated combat network issued a verification request. Weapon classification confirmation required. Ava pressed her communicator. Confirmation accepted. A second alert appeared. Projectile velocity exceeds standard training parameters. Confirmed. Another warning followed. Potential terrain damage predicted. Confirmed. The spectators listening to the exchange began laughing again. Most had no understanding of what the alerts meant. To them, it sounded like an outdated human weapon struggling to meet Academy regulations. Cale Vorth leaned forward from the observation deck. "Are they seriously making this dramatic?" he asked. A few cadets nearby chuckled. "Maybe the launcher is afraid." The comments continued spreading across public broadcasts. Ava ignored every word. Her eyes remained fixed on a distant mountain range nearly 30 kilometers from the target complex. Commandant Sarek narrowed his gaze. He knew exactly where she was aiming. And it wasn't the objective. "What's she doing?" one instructor asked. The answer came a moment later. Ava activated the arena communication channel. Her voice echoed throughout the massive facility. This shot is not intended for the target. Confused murmurs spread instantly. The judges exchanged puzzled looks. Even Kale frowned. Then Ava spoke again. This is a warning shot. The statement triggered laughter across the observation decks. A warning shot? Against an inanimate target? The idea sounded ridiculous. Kale shook his head. I've heard enough. Ava slowly exhaled. Then she pulled the trigger. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then the launcher discharged. The sound alone stunned the audience. Every previous weapon used during the trials had produced flashes of energy, bursts of light, or exotic distortions. This was different. The arena shook. A violent crack thundered across the battlefield. Not an explosion. Not a plasma burst. A crack. Like reality itself had been struck by a hammer. The projectile vanished so quickly that most sensors failed to track it. Thousands of viewers thought the weapon had malfunctioned. Then the mountain moved. At first it seemed impossible. An entire section of the distant range suddenly split apart. A bright fracture line raced across solid stone. A heartbeat later, the peak collapsed. Millions of tons of rock erupted outward. Dust clouds rose into the sky. Shockwaves rolled through nearby valleys. The terrain generators registered catastrophic geological instability. Emergency stabilization systems activated instantly. Across the arena, reinforced observation towers trembled. Shield emitters flickered. Structural monitors flashed warning signals. For several seconds nobody spoke. The laughter disappeared. The commentators fell silent. The audience stared at the enormous scar carved into the mountain range. Ava hadn't hit the target. She hadn't even aimed at it. She had intentionally fired away from it. And still the result looked like a battlefield disaster. Inside the control center, analysts scrambled to verify sensor data. Impact confirmed. That can't be correct. It is. Check again. We already did. Numbers flooded the displays. Velocity calculations. Energy projections. Impact assessments. Every result returned the same conclusion. The launcher had been operating under Academy safety restrictions. Its output wasn't even at full combat capacity. One of the instructors slowly sat down. That's a training configuration. Nobody answered him. Nobody wanted to. The implications were becoming obvious. If a restricted warning shot could fracture a mountain, what would happen if the weapon were used as intended? Below, Ava calmly stood and rested the launcher against her shoulder. She looked almost bored. As if nothing remarkable had happened. The contrast unsettled the audience more than the destruction itself. Kale stared through the observation glass. His confidence had vanished. For the first time since entering the academy, he found himself unable to find words. Commandant Sarek finally broke the silence. His voice carried through the arena's communication network. For those unfamiliar with human military doctrine, a warning shot serves a specific purpose. Millions listened. It is fired when force can still be avoided. The meaning settled over the audience. Not as information. As realization. Humans didn't fire warning shots because they lacked confidence. They fired them because they were giving opponents a final opportunity to reconsider. The mountain continued collapsing in the distance. Dust rolled across the horizon. A visual reminder of what restraint looked like. Several cadets who had mocked Ava earlier suddenly avoided eye contact. Others stared at the launcher with visible discomfort. Everything they thought they knew about human warfare was unraveling. No advanced energy fields. No exotic alien technology. No spectacular visual effects. Just physics. Applied with terrifying precision. Ava glanced toward the target complex still standing at the center of the arena. Its shields remained active. Its defenses remained intact. The actual evaluation had not even begun. She checked a final set of calculations on her display. Then she loaded another round. This time, nobody laughed. Nobody made jokes. Nobody questioned her equipment. The entire arena watched in absolute silence as the human cadet prepared her next shot. Because everyone now understood the same thing. The first round had never been intended to destroy anything important. And that made the second one far more frightening. No one spoke as Ava Mercer secured the second round inside the launcher. The silence hanging over the arena felt heavier than any explosion. Moments earlier, millions had been entertained by the prospect of watching a human cadet fail. Now the same audience watched with growing unease. The target complex remained untouched at the center of the battlefield. Its layered defensive systems were still active. Multiple shield generators surrounded the structure, each designed specifically to withstand the most advanced weapons in coalition service. Every previous cadet had attacked those defenses directly. Ava had spent her time studying them. That difference was beginning to matter. Inside the command center, analysts reviewed the data from the warning shot. The more they examined it, the more uncomfortable they became. The weapon itself wasn't revolutionary. That was the disturbing part. Human engineers had not built something beyond galactic science. They had simply pushed familiar science to levels most species had abandoned centuries ago. For thousands of years, coalition civilizations had focused almost entirely on energy-based warfare. Plasma. Particle beams. Gravitic manipulation. Exotic technologies capable of producing spectacular destruction. Humanity had developed those systems too. They simply never stopped improving kinetic weapons. Many species considered projectiles primitive because they associated age with weakness. Humans never made that mistake. A weapon was judged by effectiveness. Nothing else. As the analysts continued their calculations, historical records began surfacing across military databases. Ancient human artillery. Orbital rail systems. Mass drivers. Hypervelocity impact platforms. Generations of weapons built around a single principle. Momentum. One instructor stared at the information appearing on his display. They've been refining this concept for thousands of years. Another slowly nodded. While everyone else chased newer technologies. Down in the arena, Ava finished her calculations. The target's defensive shield appeared flawless from the outside. It wasn't. No defensive system ever was. Every shield possessed frequencies. Cycles. Momentary fluctuations. Tiny imperfections invisible to casual observers. Most cadets attempted to overwhelm those weaknesses with brute force. Ava intended to exploit them. The targeting reticle settled into position. A direct shot would fail. She had already determined that. Instead, she adjusted the trajectory slightly. Then again. Then once more. To outside observers the aiming process seemed unnecessarily complicated. To human military doctrine, it was routine. The best battle was often won before the trigger was pulled. Commandant Sarek watched her work. For the first time, he understood why human officers consistently outperformed expectations during coalition war games. They approached combat differently. Most species viewed weapons as solutions. Humans viewed them as tools. The solution was always understanding. Ava finally stopped adjusting. Target lock confirmed. The arena held its breath. Then she fired. The launcher thundered. Again the projectile disappeared almost instantly. This time the sensors tracked enough data to display its path. The round crossed the battlefield. Instead of striking the shield head-on, it approached from an unexpected angle. A fraction of a second before impact, the projectile passed through a narrow point where multiple shield frequencies intersected. The barrier flickered. Not visibly. Not dramatically. Just enough. The round punched through. Every shield layer failed simultaneously. The projectile continued forward without losing significant momentum. The command complex vanished. There was no prolonged bombardment. No sustained assault. No spectacular exchange of fire. One instant the objective existed. The next instant it did not. A controlled shockwave spread outward as automated safety systems absorbed the remaining energy. When the dust settled, nothing remained of the target except scorched foundations. The arena's scoring network processed the result. A perfect evaluation. Maximum efficiency. Minimum resource expenditure. Zero unnecessary collateral damage. A record-breaking performance. The scoreboard updated. Ava's name moved instantly to first place. Far above the battlefield, disbelief swept through the observation decks. The objective that had resisted every advanced weapon in the competition had been eliminated with a single shot. Not because the human launcher was stronger. Because the human using it understood exactly where to apply force. Cale Vorth stared at the destroyed complex. His earlier confidence felt distant now. Everything he had believed about military superiority had been built around strength. Power. Aggression. Dominance. Yet Ava had achieved more by thinking than by attacking. The realization unsettled him. Around him, cadets began discussing humanity in completely different terms. Questions replaced jokes. Curiosity replaced arrogance. Some wondered whether humans intentionally concealed their capabilities. Others questioned why coalition military academies spent so little time studying human doctrine. The answers were simpler than anyone expected. Humanity had never hidden anything. Their military histories were publicly available. Their strategic principles were openly taught. The galaxy had ignored them because the lessons sounded too simple. Observe. Adapt. Understand. Then act. Ava lowered the launcher and looked toward the observation decks. The competition was effectively over. No remaining cadet could surpass her score. Yet as she prepared to leave the arena, a new notification appeared across the Academy network. A formal challenge request. Submitted by Cale Vorth. The highest-ranked combat cadet in the Academy was demanding a direct engagement. And for the first time since arriving at the Academy, he wasn't seeking humiliation. He was seeking answers. The challenge spread across coalition networks within minutes. Every cadet knew what it meant. Cale Vorth had never requested a direct combat evaluation before. Throughout his years at the Academy, he had been the benchmark others measured themselves against. He wasn't challenging Ava out of arrogance anymore. The confidence that had fueled his mockery was gone. What remained was determination. The Academy approved the request immediately. Millions of viewers returned to the live broadcast. Unlike the previous trial, this engagement would test adaptability, tactical awareness, and decision-making under pressure. Both participants entered a specialized combat environment designed to simulate real battlefield conditions. The moment the match began, Cale moved. Fast. Far faster than most species could perceive. His combat armor amplified every movement while advanced targeting systems continuously scanned for weaknesses. He changed positions constantly, refusing to remain predictable. This was the version of Cale that had dominated Academy rankings. Aggressive. Decisive. Relentless. Ava didn't chase him. She didn't rush. She simply observed. Every movement. Every angle. Every decision. Cale launched the first attack. A concentrated energy burst crossed the battlefield. Ava shifted position before it arrived. Not because she reacted faster. Because she had anticipated where the attack would originate. Kale immediately adjusted. A second attack followed from a different direction. Again she avoided it. The exchange continued. Observers expected a dramatic firefight. Instead, they witnessed something stranger. The human cadet seemed to know where danger would appear before it happened. Minutes passed. Kale increased the pressure. He accelerated. Changed tactics. Created false openings. Attempted feints. Switched attack patterns repeatedly. Nothing worked. Ava wasn't defeating his strategy. She was reading it. Military analysts watching the engagement began noticing a pattern. Every movement Kale made was slowly pushing him toward specific areas of the battlefield. At first it seemed coincidental. Then it became undeniable. Ava wasn't responding to the battle. She was shaping it. Without realizing it, Kale had spent the entire match moving exactly where she wanted him to move. The discovery stunned the audience. Humans called it battlefield conditioning. The gradual manipulation of an opponent's choices until they unknowingly selected the outcome you preferred. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't dramatic. It was effective. For the first time, Kale recognized what was happening. He stopped moving. Looked around. And understood. Every possible route of attack now carried disadvantages. Every advantageous position belonged to Ava. The battlefield had become a trap constructed one decision at a time. Not through superior technology. Through superior planning. A slow realization appeared on his face. The match had effectively ended several minutes earlier. He simply hadn't noticed. Ava raised her launcher. The targeting indicator settled on his armor. One clean shot. Nothing excessive. Nothing destructive. Just enough to disable his combat systems. The evaluation network immediately registered a decisive victory. The arena fell silent. Not because anyone doubted the outcome. Because everyone understood what they had witnessed. The human cadet had never attempted to overpower her opponent. She had outthought him. Kale slowly removed his helmet. For a moment he said nothing. Then he stepped forward and addressed both the audience and academy leadership. When I arrived here, I believed strength determined superiority. The statement echoed throughout the arena. I believed advanced technology guaranteed victory. He looked directly at Ava. I believed humans survived because the galaxy underestimated them. A brief pause followed. I was wrong. No one interrupted. Humanity succeeds because it understands something the rest of us forgot. The audience listened carefully. Power means nothing without discipline. The words carried more weight coming from him than anyone else. For years he had represented the Academy's ideals. Now he was redefining them. Commandant Sarek stepped onto the central platform. The combat excellence trials are officially concluded. The scoreboard appeared overhead. Ava Mercer stood alone at the top. Highest tactical score. Highest efficiency rating. Highest overall evaluation. A record-setting achievement. Yet the Academy's leadership seemed less interested in the numbers than in the lesson behind them. Human military doctrine was scheduled for immediate curriculum review. Strategic Studies departments requested access to human combat archives. Coalition officers began submitting applications for exchange programs with Terran military institutions. The shift was happening in real time. Not because humanity had unveiled some secret superweapon. Because the galaxy had finally paid attention. As the ceremony ended, reporters asked Ava a single question. What is humanity's greatest military strength? She considered the answer carefully. Then she looked toward the fractured mountain visible beyond the arena. The ability to destroy something isn't impressive, she said. Almost anyone can learn that. The crowd remained silent. What matters is knowing exactly when destruction is necessary. No dramatic speech followed. No celebration. No boasting. Just a simple truth. The galaxy had feared humanity's weapons after witnessing one warning shot. What changed history was realizing the warning shot had been a choice. Humanity possessed immense power. The reason they were respected was that they understood when not to use it. And in the minds of millions watching across the stars, that lesson proved far more intimidating than the cracked mountain ever could.